Hi, Hana. Thank you so much for spending Thursday evening with us and, being on this podcast episode. Can you please tell us a bit more about yourself and what you do?
Hi, my name is Hana, and I am a full-time lecturer in the School of Fashion and Design over at MDIS Singapore. My preferred pronouns are she, they, and I'm currently in my bedroom wearing pajamas. Like I mentioned earlier to Sin, that I wanted it to be like pillow talk, so I wanted it to be a bit more casual, and PJs are what I feel the most comfortable in.
Yes. That's so nice. All right. Okay. So we are here today to talk about materials, but more specifically about biomaterials. And it's something that you've been experimenting with for quite a while now. Can you share a bit more with us about what
Okay,
you do?
so with biomaterials, it literally just started probably last August. I was taking this module. I was going to teach this module called exploratory practice, and it borders on sustainability.
Mhm.
Right. So what in the module guides from our UK partners, we were given module guides, and in one of the footnote, they were talking about oh, this is a recipe for vegan leather. I'm like, oh, okay, it seems like I have the materials, I have the
Right.
ingredients. Why don't I try? Because I feel like if I try it and it's successful, I can then bring it to the classroom, right?
Mm,
And then I could explore it with my students. So
mm,
I begin exploring biomaterials, more specifically vegan leather, out of kombucha because I am a home brewer myself, and
right.
I just had extra Scobies lying around, and I thought, why not? Right.
Mhm.
So that began an entire like a new chapter of biomaterials and exploring new materials, not just for me but for the school too and for the department, because we're
Mm,
learning something new all the time with you know be it harvesting or growing or dyeing this material.
right.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, biomaterials have been around for quite a while now. It's got
Mm,
history dated back, to so long ago, but I feel like it's only sort of entered the conversation in the sustainability space. So
mm,
and I find that really interesting, like the transition from something that, you know, used to be out of necessity or utility, or maybe just out of convenience, actually.
yes, I think at the end of the day, the fashion industry is ever changing, right?
Mm,
And with our consumers, us as consumers, we are far more well read. We are quote
mm.
unquote woke, right? And we wanna know a couple of things about sustainability, not and we have access to knowledge,
Right.
which is literally on our phones. So it's not very difficult for consumers to demand a change or to want to
Mm,
see change. With that, the industry had to change along with the consumers, right? So that's why we have a lot of brands who now offer either recyclable materials or garments made out of recycled materials,
mm,
or they have some kind of program where, hey, if you bring old jeans, you can get new jeans from us, things like that. So it is not new, but it's,
mm,
I think, far more prevalent now, which is great,
mm.
right?
Yeah.
But still, what bothers me, of course, number one would be some companies who are greenwashing,
Right.
right? They say that, yeah, this is made from sustainable cotton,
Yeah.
or this is made from recycled materials, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But how many percent of their entire collection for that
Mm,
season is made out of that? Probably
mm,
a small percentage, but then because that is what the consumer wants to see, right?
mm.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
still we still have a long way to go, but
Mm.
it's there, but it's not the conversations is not how you call that, we're not having these conversations as often
Right.
as we would as I
As we
would like
should. Yeah.
personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
my first sort of exposure or
Mm.
impression of biomaterials is actually when H&M collaborated with
Yes,
Tex. Yeah, I think this was like
yes,
in 2017, 2018 maybe, or
yes,
2019,
yes.
when they had like a capsule collection that was made out of pineapple leather from
Yeah,
Tex, a company,
correct.
right? And I was like, Wow. And I think I was still quite early on in my journey of discovery
Yeah.
and, figuring out like, well, what is wrong with the industry. And I was pretty impressed actually. I was like, wow,
Mm,
I think not so much with H&M for using pineapple leather, but more so with the actual fact that we can make
yeah.
materials out of food, out of
Of scrap materials,
yeah,
essentially.
exactly. Thereafter, there were more materials that sort of like came about, like mushroom leather, spider silk.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and they also sort of like they weren't just prevalent in the clothing industry. I mean, maybe prevalent's not the word to use, but like they weren't just appearing in clothing and sort of the things we wear, but also like in home goods or
Yeah.
furniture.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, we're really going somewhere with this. Yeah.
Yeah. And recently there's mango leather too,
Yeah, mango leather. Yes, yes.
right? But I feel as an educator, and I've been in the education sector for almost a decade now.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen how, I mean, we build modules, right? We look at modules, and I've seen how it has dramatically shifted.
Mm,
Usually, probably in 2015, no one in the module, there's nowhere in the module guide that even speaks about sustainability. Probably like
mm,
one off, and it's probably like a, s- a secondary thought, right?
right. Yeah.
Now
Yep.
it's the entire module or the entire year is
Yeah.
or the entire term is given to sustainability.
Mm,
So I can see how it has shifted, and
mm,
I think that's great, right? Because at the end of the day, my students or the fashion students
mm,
are the next generations who is able to, or who might be interested in producing such biomaterials. I mean,
mm,
I'm just one person, right? And because I brought this to my classroom, I've seen how my students have looked at materials. I've seen how
right.
my students have treated materials. I've
Right.
also seen how they are giving in more thought into
Mm,
waste, which is something I cannot teach them, right? Because if
mm,
I just show them theory, or like, oh yeah, see how the turtles are choking on plastic straws.
mm,
I mean,
mm,
you become very it's a norm, right? But
mm,
with practice, I have seen a shift in these students, which is great. And
mm,
this batch of students are the first ones to do it. And I really don't think there's another module like that around in
mm.
Singapore,
Yeah.
especially.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's an exciting step.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. So have
yeah.
you noticed any sort of like interesting shift? Because you mentioned that, you witnessed a sort of like a mindset shift.
Mm,
Does
mm.
it translate into like the sort of work that they produce?
Yes, definitely. I
Yeah.
mean, because my module is just one of the it's one of the medium sized module. It's not like a large main module,
Mhm.
but they will go on to other modules, right? After
Right.
me, so on
Yeah.
and so forth. And these students are in year 2. They still have one more year to go. So
Mm,
I have seen how they have thought about, oh, okay, maybe I should factor in zero waste draping instead
mm,
of, or zero waste pattern cutting instead
mm,
of the traditional pattern cutting, for so that I could save a bit of
mm,
material, save a bit of paper, so on and so forth. Because the production process or the sampling process is ridiculous, right? The amount of paper that
mm.
you use, the amount of fabrics that you use, the amount of samplings that you go
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
Like, one wrong sleeve, you got to redo the entire sleeve.
Mm,
So I can see that my students are currently thinking about ways, about, okay, so
right.
what else can I do to improve my process? I
Mm,
think process is far more important than
mm.
improving concepts, I think, because at the end of the day, process is where a lot of the waste is created,
Mm, mm, mm,
right?
mm,
Yeah.
mm, mm. Yeah, yeah. That's such a good point, actually. Yeah. I've never
Because
thought of it like this.
people always look at fashion like, okay, just something that you get off the rack, but there's a lot of work that is done behind the scenes
Yeah.
that will contribute to waste, or there's a lot of harmful dyes that goes into the lakes, into the river, into the water. We all know this conversation is not new, right? But
Mm,
then if the current students, if my current students can have a shift in mindset, they can bring that into their entire fashion career, which is great.
which is so
Yeah.
heartening, right? Because it's just
Yeah, I
like,
know. And I cannot wait for them to, go to year 3 and for me for them to tell me, oh yeah, because I want to do like something which is sustainable, I'll probably cry,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
yeah, I'll probably be really happy.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
But a lot of people also don't see how difficult it is to make
Right.
processes which are tested and tried, and they haven't failed, because a lot of people say if it's not broken, why fix it?
Right.
And the processes in fashion hasn't changed in decades, right? In centuries
Mm,
even. So it's really difficult for my students or anybody who
right.
wants to step a foot in sustainability to pivot, because that's all. Literally, when I was a student, I wasn't taught sustainability at all. It wasn't my time, right? But now it is here. So
Mm,
yeah, it's rather difficult to pivot. So we'll see. Yeah.
right. Yeah. And also, like just going back to when we were speaking about biomaterials, do you think,
Mm.
like what do you think is like the significance and the importance of biomaterials in fashion production, or even like how like it's yeah, where does it stand in the overall sort of like landscape of the fashion industry?
Okay, if it was a pie chart, biomaterials would be the smallest pie, right?
Mm,
It has so much potential. No,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, there is no doubt about its potential. But I think when it
Mm,
comes to commercial viability is where people would start to question.
mm,
Not just commercially, but also me as a creator, right? That I've been working with this, playing with this, tinkering with this. I'm thinking about, okay, how do I even waterproof vegan leather
right.
to make it biodegradable? Because if I am talking about a material being biodegradable, I cannot go halfway,
Mm,
right? What's the point of me using like mushroom leather or whatever, but then I treat it or I finish it like calf leather. So I put resin on it, I put
right,
chemicals
right,
on it. I mean, I'm only solving half of the problem,
right.
right? So
Mm,
at this stage, the potential is enormous. Yeah,
mm,
definitely. But then again, the applications are still very, very small and very
mm,
niche. You know what I mean?
mm,
It's small things like wallets or small things like notebook covers.
right.
It's
Yeah.
still very much a novelty. Yeah, instead of it
Mm,
being a norm, I mean, yeah, um, big companies like Pinatex, right? They
mm,
have made it a norm, which is great. But then there's only one,
mm. Yeah.
right? Especially in Southeast Asia, we still don't have a lot of companies. I have seen an Indonesian-based company that does like micro leather, which is
Mm,
from mushrooms,
yeah.
and they're doing great, right? But that's again one company.
Mm,
So
mm,
right now, that's why I say if it's a pie chart, we are the smallest
mm.
slice.
In terms of, I
Yeah.
guess, the scale of impact, right? I guess, yeah, it was
Mm,
small,
mm.
but
We are so tiny at this stage,
mm,
but at least we're having conversations, and at
right.
least we're putting it into classrooms where I
Yes.
feel that besides, practicing it, being
Mm,
aware of it is something that will have will be able to will make the students think about materials differently,
mm.
just having conversations about it.
Yes,
And
yes, yes.
when I was growing the vegan leather and people were just walking past it because it's right outside our studio, and people are like, oh, what is this, so smelly? What is this, what nonsense are you guys doing now, right? And then once it's dry, once I've dyed it, and they're like, oh cool, it really does look like leather, right? People are constantly shocked that what, this was brewed but in tea. Oh, okay, I never thought it was possible. So for me, biomaterials should be accessible to everybody, because literally you have the ingredients in your kitchen.
Mm,
Right?
mm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's what I'm trying to do with the modules, and I'm also trying to do it like when I have conversations with whoever, and they ask me what I do with my biomaterials, and then I let them touch. It's you can literally see their eyes kind of like, oh, okay, interesting, because
Mm,
they never thought it was possible, especially not in Singapore.
mm.
It gets overwhelming. To be honest, it gets really overwhelming. Like you, one person, you have this crisis at at like 3 a.m. Oh my God, what do I do? Because I want to talk about sustainability, but I still have habits which are not sustainable. And then I have all these conversations with myself, right?
Mm,
But I feel
mm,
like
mm.
if I'm trying, and I'm bringing it into a platform like such as yours, right? At least I can pick a couple of interests. Is
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, right. Just a little spark is all I
Mm,
need. Sometimes at 3 a.m. I'm thinking, oh my God, like I talk to my students, or like I preach to my students about being sustainable, but are my habits sustainable? And then you reflect. And then while you reflect, you realize that okay, habits are very hard to break, especially when you have been growing in a city, right, where
yeah.
sustainability is a privilege. I keep telling my
Mm,
students that sustainability is a privilege because other people around the world, there are some communities that do it, like you said just now, out of necessity,
mm, mm,
right? And it's
mm,
not for us. We're like, oh yes, sustainability, but for other communities, this is their daily life.
mm,
This is their reality. It's very
mm,
different from our realities when we are living in
mm,
a city such as us, right?
yeah.
So yeah, it's
Mm.
it's difficult.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing this up, and thank you for, bringing up the nuance behind sustainability and or sustainable habits.
Before I start the module, I always ask my students this question for them to like really reflect.
Mm-hmm.
If only 5% of the entire global population have access, have resources, and have the knowledge of sustainability, and only 5% of the global population is able to, apply it to their daily lives, is it truly sustainable? When
Mm,
there's 95% of, everyone else who is unable to.
mm, mm,
Yeah, because unfortunately, when we talk about sustainable lifestyle, sometimes it comes with a price tag.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not cheap,
yeah,
and
and
not everybody will have that kind of resource.
especially the sustainability that is sort of more popular or made popular under
Or
capitalism.
romanticize, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's yes,
yes.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is what I wanted to say, but then I didn't want to go there.
Yes,
Thank you
that's
for
okay.
saying it for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, no,
Yeah,
no. Mm-hmm.
because
Exactly.
it's a lot of sustainability is very romanticized by either celebrities, it's
Right.
endorsed by like, influencers. But then is that really
Yeah,
sustainable?
yeah.
Hmm.
Like you
Yeah,
said, a lot of people practice it out of I mean, out of the
necessity.
set. Yeah, because it's a
Yeah,
necessity, and that in itself is so much more sustainable than say
and us.
buying a glass straw or a metal straw.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
When Especially when my students say, "Oh yeah, I'll just use cotton." I'm like, "Okay, where are you getting this cotton from? Is this cotton
Mm,
sustainable? How can you prove to me that cotton is sustainable when cotton
mm,
is one of the material that takes up the most water?
mm,
It takes up the most labor. It
mm,
is, yeah. Here's the thing: the price of cotton has steadily risen up
mm,
because the entire world is burning.
mm, mm.
So can you? So whenever I see text that says sustainable cotton, I'm like,
Yeah,
really?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's a little difficult for me to wrap my head around.
yeah. And
Yeah,
also, I think it has almost become like almost like an excuse or some sort of like marketing language that big
it
fashion
is.
corporations use and excuse
Yes.
themselves for using synthetic materials. I'm not sure if you've seen that latest, I don't know if it's like a blog post or like an article that was published by H&M that sort of like
Mm-hmm.
was explaining why they use synthetic fibers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll send it through to you. Like, I think you will find that pretty interesting.
Okay, but here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Not all synthetic fibers are bad,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Not all of them are bad.
yeah.
How they are processed can
Mm.
be bad,
Yeah, and how
right? Because
they're
at the end of the day,
extracted, right? Like what?
yeah, can
Yeah,
be bad.
yeah.
Because some of them legit, they use recycled plastics,
Mm.
they break down old clothes and they turn it into new fabrics. Fine, fantastic. But the processes that comes along with that can be quite harmful. And
Yeah.
also, again, in that breath, I want to talk about like how not everybody can afford sustainable cotton, maybe
Yeah.
sustainable linen
Organic
even.
cotton. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
natural fibers, not everybody can afford it. Let's be real, because
Yeah.
cotton, linen, natural fibers are very expensive.
Yeah.
So that's why at the end of the day, the evil really isn't synthetic fabrics, because if everyone is only lobbying for natural fibers or natural fabrics, it's either the somebody has to lower down the price of cotton, or we have no other alternatives, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
not all synthetic fabrics are bad. At the end of the day, a lot of synthetic fabrics were created for function, right? That's what people forget. So
And to almost
function,
replicate that sort of like function that
yeah,
natural fibers have, right?
yeah. So not a function could also be with technology, in the sense where fireproof fabrics, water repelling fabrics, which are needed in some professions,
Yeah, for
right?
sure. Yeah.
So yeah, so that is where synthetic fabrics excel, right? Synthetic fabrics with technology added into them, they completely
Yeah.
excel in that spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think also what I was going to say earlier was that we cannot sort of talk about the benefits or the downsides of materials without speaking about the scale that they are produced at, that they are manufactured at.
Yes.
Going back to biomaterials, if you could just maybe walk us through the process of how you've been creating these new materials. I mean, they're not new, but like, yeah, new to us, right? And also if you've met with any problems or anything that you had to troubleshoot along the way as you tinker and create these materials.
Like I mentioned just now, I only had like a footnote and a recipe to go on. And I was wondering, okay, number one, can I get it in Singapore? Right?
Right.
Because we are all in lockdown and there's no way I was gonna like get things flown in. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So can I find it in Singapore? That's one. Number two, how big of a scale do I need? Do I need like a large factory to do it?
Right. Or
Can I
like a
do it in my
lab.
kitchen? Yeah. How professional can I? What kind of professional skill can I achieve? Right? Because at the end of the day, I always keep telling my students, sustainability or the materials that you create has to be accessible to people. That means if they are able to create it in the kitchen, great, right? Because that's how then the ball keeps rolling.
Yeah.
So a lot of problems I also find out is that a lot of the research done is from the western part of the world. That means they have other materials or other chemicals or other stabilizers that I do not have. They so far there really isn't any talk about any creators or thinkers from Southeast Asia. Maybe they are, maybe they're not talking about it, which is unfortunate, because I would love to talk to them, right? That is another one. So basically I had to wing it, right? I had to figure it out myself. I found out that, okay, so Scoby basically grows into whatever shape you put it into.
Right.
So I had to figure out the conditions of, if I wanted to grow it into this big, or like how big can I grow it, and how long, what kind of measurements do I need, will this recipe work for like a large piece, things like that, right?
Right.
So I had to figure all of this out. And one thing about Scoby, even though it's resilient, it will grow anywhere. It does. Yeah, it is so resilient. Oh my God. It will not die. I tried. It just will not die. But what I needed to also understand is what kind of humidity does it like?
Right.
Does it like full sun? Does it like it warm? Does it like it does it like it humid? I don't know all of this, right? Because I've only kept it in a jar to brew kombucha. I've never had it or I've never grown it for the sole purpose of growing vegan leather. So those are one of the problems. And I didn't really had anybody to like ask questions or bounce ideas off from.
Yeah.
So yeah, all I did was read research papers, and like there are a couple of creators who are based in the US who have tried to share their recipes, and I've tried replicating it, but to no avail, right? So again, I couldn't go like, this didn't work out. What happened? Can you tell me what to do? Can you send me materials? I can't. So literally whatever I've done is based on either pure luck, and or just like yeah, really pure luck. Pure luck. Yeah. So for the ones that I'm growing with my conditions over in my studio on campus, it takes about a month and a half to 2 months for it to grow to
Okay.
a certain thickness,
Okay.
because Scoby is about 95% water, right? So even if it was this thick, it will thin down to almost nothing. So I gotta find like a sweet spot for it to go like, oh, okay, so this is a sweet spot, because I know it will dry down to like probably 2 mm, and 2 mm is strong enough. Yeah. So yeah, it's yeah,
Right.
a lot of testing. Yeah.
So, because you were showing me the kombucha leather earlier, so how long did it take for it to grow to like that?
This one, okay. So what I did was literally I took the largest container I had, which is about 1.5 meters by half a meter, right?
Right.
It's not
Okay.
that big, but that's the biggest container I had.
That's a huge
Literally,
container.
I feel like the bigger the better, right? Like
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
it. If it fails, okay, lor, too bad. I mean, and it worked, right? So it took me about 3 months, about 2 to 3 months for
Okay.
me, for the first batch to grow out. And then a couple of days for me to wash, to dry, and to dye it.
Okay.
And then after that, I have to like really dry it, because there's a certain I don't know if you smelled Scoby or kombucha while it's brewing. It's not very pleasant.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So a lot of people go like, "It's so smelly. What is this smell?" And unfortunately, that is the defining trait of vegan leather, or like my leather or kombucha
Okay.
leather.
Yeah.
So that is also one of the reasons as to why commercial viability is still not there yet.
Right.
Right? Yeah. So it took about 3 months for me to figure it out, and then yeah, thankfully it's one of the better pieces I've had.
I guess it sort of like it's like the smell of like fermentation, right? Because you are like kombucha brewing is fermenting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's
So
not.
I mean, I'm used to it by now, but if you're new to it, you'll be like, okay, something smells like wet socks. Yeah,
Right.
it really does smell like wet socks. Yeah,
Right.
not everybody's comfortable with wet socks, apparently.
Like a very tangible way of knowing that you are so involved with making your own sort of materials at home that your like all of your senses are being like engaged.
Yeah,
with
it's completely normal to me by now. Right, which I mean, because it is also a very hands-on process where you have to brew the tea, you gotta let the tea go down to room temperature. You gotta feed I call them my babies, by the way. So I gotta feed my children. After I feed them, I gotta wait for them, and then 2 weeks later I feed them again. So there is no part of the process which you just like hands off. It's constantly I gotta get my hands dirty. I gotta flip it over and see, oh, is it thick enough?
right.
I gotta see about the condition. Is there any mold? So on and so forth. So
Yeah.
it is a very hands-on, and I wanted to bring that to the classroom too, because a lot of students, I feel that after a while they get quite disconnected.
Right.
Yes, they have materials. Yes, fashion is a very hands-on school, but they get very disconnected from making materials, because
Right.
why make materials? You can buy it from somewhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to bring that back to the classroom. We are actually trying to have a garden actually on campus, where we will grow our
Wow.
own like vegetable dyes and
Oh
what
wow.
yeah, things like that. Because I feel that at the end of the day, if you can go back to basics, right? What can stop you? Nothing can stop you, right? If you can make dye out of carrots and onion skins, you're set for life,
Yeah,
right?
you're
Then
so self-sufficient. You can just dye
yeah,
your own
that
clothes.
is my entire goal, right? To be
Yeah.
so self-sufficient that I can move to the middle of the woods and be fine.
Yeah.
That is my goal in life, to be honest. Yeah.
That's a good goal. That's a good goal.
Yeah. I'm working towards it.
Yes, yes. How has this entire process sort of like informed you of how you perceive the way you see clothing now? Like how it's sort of like affected your own habits of wear?
I mean, I wake up at 3 a.m. thinking that, okay, how can I be more sustainable? And like, am I hypocrite, right? So that is something that I would have never thought I would even have a couple of
Right.
years ago. Never. Because I mean, being in fashion, unfortunately, you are constantly surrounded by things you want to buy
Yeah, yeah,
all the
yeah,
time,
for sure.
right?
Yes,
It's
yes.
always like, oh, that dress so nice, I want to buy.
Yeah,
Oh, this shoe so nice, I want to buy.
yeah,
So
yeah.
now, instead of me constantly like browsing or like, oh yeah, I want to get this, I want to get this, I want to get this, I'm more like, okay, do I need this?
Mm,
Do I have this? Don't I have the same one, just in a different
mm,
color? Right? I'm
mm.
more self-aware of my, hypocritical self.
Right.
And how I'm spending my money and to whom, right? Because
Mm,
I'm doing all this preaching about sustainability, but if I am not that, it's quite useless, right?
mm,
So
mm.
I also see a couple of changes, not just with me, but in my students as a collective.
Mm,
They now talk about sustainability. They now when they are going to start a new module or start a new project, they always will have an angle of sustainability to it.
mm.
Not just because I remind them of it, but because they naturally now they think, oh, okay, how can I make the processes more efficient, more sustainable, and therefore saving money on them, on their side, and also creating a better, more ethical, and less harmful collection. Because
Mm.
at the end of the day, I people need to remember that fashion is one of the biggest pollutants.
Yeah.
Okay, not just from the consumer side, from the processes, from the
Yeah.
get-go, it is the most
Yes.
harmful.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, if
Yeah.
society didn't dictate us to wear clothes, we would none of us would be wearing clothes. But
Mm,
unfortunately, we have to.
mm,
So right now, all I'm looking at is how do I prolong my wear? How
mm.
do I prolong my clothes? How do I mean, thankfully, I have the skills to, patch
Yeah.
my old clothes if it tears, whatever. I have a pair of pants that I've been wearing for like 12 years. Thankfully, I still fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just found a hole on it. I'm like, you know what? I'll just sew. I
Mm.
haven't, I have not, I have not even thought about replacing it, right? Because I love
Right.
it so much.
Right.
And I've had these pajamas for like 7 years. So it's something like, um, I feel like uh, I'm changing my awareness in terms of spending because
Mm,
personally, that was my biggest problem.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's almost like an inevitable sort of spending, actually, like being
Mm.
in the fashion industry, like be teaching at a fashion school, teaching at an art school, and just
Mm.
surrounding yourself with, everyone who probably wears a different outfit every other day.
Every day.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
not.
And at one point of time, there was a lot of shame about you like
Mm,
repeating outfits. I really don't care now.
yeah,
I'm
there was,
so glad.
yeah,
Yeah,
there
I,
was a
I'm.
point
There was
in
a point,
time.
right? And people would
Yeah,
shame you, like, didn't you wear this like yesterday or 2 days
yeah,
ago? I'm like, I
yeah,
have a washing machine.
yeah.
I can wash it.
Yes.
Like right now, I'm so glad I'm at that age where I really don't care.
Mm,
Maybe when I was
mm,
younger, I would have cared, but I think
mm,
with age, I have better priorities. Instead of this,
mm.
oh no, I wore this pants like 2 days ago. Should I not wear this pants today? I really don't care.
Mm,
Which is a very good attitude to have,
mm.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad that, that's sort of like imparted to your students also, and for them
Yeah.
to see, to almost like have someone, like have a role model almost, and be like, hey, my teacher is so cool. Like
I
I can be
hope,
cool
I
too.
really hope. I, one can hope, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think right now also with the conversations that we're having, especially with social media, I mean,
Mm,
with the good and bad of social media, there are a lot of conversations like this which are fronted by young, young adults or youths,
mm,
which
mm.
when it was my time, I didn't have all of this. So that is also great that conversations are starting. Not only that, people are actually showing, oh, so this is how I take this skirt and turn it into a top so that you can prolong the wear. Or here are
Right.
some tips
Yeah.
that you can be
Yeah.
sustainable. So
Yeah.
that is great, right?
Yeah.
And us having this platform, sorry, you having this platform and then having a podcast about it, again,
Yeah.
it's something that one can only dream of a couple of years ago.
And I guess it's also it's actually very heartening to see people almost like sort of create sort of mending their own clothes and mending
Yeah.
worn clothes and repairing them, reworking them, upcycling them, and also, like creating your own freaking biomaterials in your own kitchen is also such a cool stand
Everybody
to
should do
take.
it.
Yeah, such a cool
Yeah,
stand to
it's
take against
yeah.
the culture and system of overproduction and mass consumption.
Some companies which are quite big
Mm-hmm.
companies
Mm-hmm.
with who are currently producing biomaterials,
Mm-hmm.
and I've reached out to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to email them, hey, like I'm from this school, like
Yeah.
would you like to speak to my students, or like maybe can you share some of your secrets about how to waterproof it, so on and so forth. And I have heard zero back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. So this was the
Nothing.
gatekeeping that you are
Yes.
mentioning. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I feel, of course, I understand. It is something that they have worked very hard on. They have put in a whole lot of money into research, right? R&D, and of course, it's something that they wanna they want to gatekeep. I completely
Mm,
understand, but I
mm.
also feel like because sustainability should not only belong to a certain group of people,
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
for people who can afford it,
Mm,
sustainability should belong to everybody,
mm.
right? Especially knowledge about, how to create
Exactly.
things, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Then I feel then it's effective, or not
Yeah.
it's just gatekeeping.
Yeah. It's almost like only people with capital or people with investment,
Yeah.
people with money can.
I'm just an educator, man. I just
Yeah.
want to learn how to make things in my kitchen. I'm not going to suddenly open up a company and sell like footwear out of biomaterials, right? I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to bring it to my classroom and show that it is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, my students should do it.
Mm-hmm.
And when they move on to their final year collections, that therefore they have another alternative option,
Mm-hmm.
right? And not just
Mm-hmm.
the options or the materials that they can find from
Mm-hmm.
from the stores. Yeah,
Mm,
that was all that I wanted.
yeah. I guess it's also like due to the state of the industry because competition is so high, and
Yeah.
which is why the fast fashion industry is so opaque, right? The supply chains of fast fashion
Mm-hmm.
companies are
Mm-hmm.
incredibly not transparent
Mm-hmm.
because they're just so afraid of, I don't know, like either competitors like learning about the prices or like where they produce or where it's like
Yeah.
the effect of this entire race to the bottom that sort of like
I mean,
allowed.
at the end of the day, it is a business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fashion is a business.
Fashion is a business, and fashion under the capitalistic system, like
Mm.
sustainability is always.
At the bottom,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
are. That's why I say we are the smallest slice of
Mm,
this $1 trillion
yeah.
empire, right? We are
Exactly.
the smallest. Yeah.
Yeah.
We are that novelty.
Yeah. In their language, in marketing
Yes.
language, you're a
Yes.
niche. Yeah.
Yes. I'm
It's
niche. Yes.
yeah, you're niche. Would you like to
Okay.
share
So I'm
some?
gonna just do this. Okay.
Yes.
So this was one of the first few kombucha leathers that I made.
Mm-hmm.
This was the one that took about 3 months to grow. So as you can tell, it is rather thin, but it is strong enough where I could not tear it like
Wow. Okay. So you're
untie,
like
and it's
applying force.
really
Yeah.
strong.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm applying force, and I I'm unable to tear it. What I really love about this is that the texture of the Scoby looks exactly like leather.
It
And
does.
this was dyed with batik dye, which is organic. And again, like I said, if I'm going to do it, I got to do it right.
Yep.
So that's why I use organic
Mm-hmm.
vegetable dyes to dye my vegan leather. So all you need to do to get this leather is to just find Scoby.
Mm.
You know where I found my Scoby? Via Carousel.
Wow.
I found
Oh my
a very
gosh.
sweet lady who was selling or giving away her Scobies for like $5. And she's like, okay, I'll teach you how to brew it because I really wanted to brew.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like this was not even in the picture, right? I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
make kombucha because I really was like, what is kombucha? I want to try this. I wanted a new hobby.
Yeah.
So I went on Carousel. I found a lady who was selling her Scobies and she taught me how to brew. Like, okay, cool. That's
Wow.
nice. And from then, like I had extra Scobies, right? They just
Right.
multiply.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just took one of it and
Mm-hmm.
started growing it.
Mm-hmm.
So another resource or where you can find Scoby would be I got it off Facebook Marketplace. I got it for free, right?
Wow.
Free. So this lady, another lady, so sweet. She came back from Australia. She had to move back from Australia, and she had like a whole jar of it. I told her like, okay, I want to collect as much Scobies as I can because I wanted to grow vegan leather. And she was like, okay, take them all. Literally, she just took an entire
Wow.
jar fake, which is
Wow.
so heartening. She said, if you need more, just let me know. Right? So ask around. You will
Mm-hmm.
always be able to find somebody who's giving away or selling away their Scobies for really, really cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Legit $3, you'll be able to find it. I was also very lucky because a friend of mine was a home brewer and he didn't know what to do with them anymore. He didn't have the time to upkeep it. He gave
Right.
me an entire jar, so there was like about 80 Scobies.
Wow.
So legit, I've never run out of Scobies. Right?
Wow.
Ask
Okay.
around. So all you need to do is to have either black tea or green tea.
Okay.
You can use a mixture of both. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I've because this is not for consumption, right? It's just to grow. We
Yeah.
just need to have a bed of tea for your Scoby to grow. You just need very sweet tea,
Okay.
sweet and strong tea. So what I do is I take about 4 liters of water,
Mm-hmm.
but you also have to understand like my containers are rather large, so please scale down.
Mm.
So I use like 500 grams of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of sugar. And
Mm-hmm.
about 20 bags of tea. You just
Okay.
dip it in there for a bit. I know. I mean, you have to use boiling water, but never feed your Scoby boiling water. Your Scoby will die. I mean,
Okay.
because Scoby literally means a symbiotic colony of yeast and of bacteria and yeast, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need all of that to be in the proper temperature, or not your yeast will just die off if it's
Okay.
too hot. So you gotta
Right.
wait for it to go down to room temperature before just adding it into your Scoby. And all you gotta do is wait. Just check on it.
Mm-hmm.
It cover it up, of course. Put it somewhere safe. Don't let your
Mm-hmm.
cat go near it or things like that. What I noticed is that a lot of fruit flies love the smell of my
Mm.
kombucha, right? So they will land on it and then there will be maggots. Trust me, I've seen it. It's not pretty.
Oh,
So cover
wow.
it well,
Okay.
keep it where you can constantly check on it,
Right.
but put probably cheesecloth or cotton over it.
Mm, mm,
Let
mm.
it grow. That's it. Once it's done, once it's about 4 cm, 6 cm, what I notice is that my sweet spot is about 6 to 7 cm.
Okay.
The longer you can let it go, just let it go. Don't forget to feed them every week or every once every 2 weeks. That's it. With the
So
same
you
kind of like,
feed them with water and sugar?
yeah, yeah. So you feed them with tea, sweet
Right.
tea. Right.
Okay.
That's the only thing they like. Right.
Okay.
I tried
Okay.
other things, they don't like it much. Only
Okay. Okay.
so once you're done with it, let's say you've found out that okay, I'm very comfortable with this thickness. I'm happy. I want to harvest. What I need you to do is to remove it very carefully. Wear gloves if you want to because your hands will stink. I'm used
Okay.
to it by now. Run it under running water.
Okay.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Wash off all the excess yeast threads. So there will
Right.
be like threads on it. Those are yeast, right? Wash it
Okay.
off, clean it up, and then if you want to dye it, that is the stage where you should dye it.
Right.
You can dye it with coffee. You can dye it with food coloring. You can
Okay.
dye it with, natural dyes. Whatever dyes you have,
Mm-hmm.
in hand or in your pantry, use it.
Mm.
Because Scoby is incredibly porous, it loves to, just
Take
all
in all
of
the
this.
water.
Yeah,
Mm.
they love it so much. So that's when your Scoby will just soak it up and then just let it soak for about 24 hours. Next day, wash off the excess, dry. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, here's the thing about drying also that I found out. Never dry it in direct sun, like at noon. It will turn into a crisp. Like this is very like the vegan leather that I'm holding up right now is very
Mhm.
pliable, it's very soft, it's very
Right.
strong, it holds its form. But then I also have some, like, let me show you what I mean. If it When I say it turns into a crisp, can you see how shiny? Okay, I'm holding up
Right.
another vegan leather piece, which is extremely shiny. It's not shiny because I put anything on it. It's shiny because it is a crisp. It
Right.
is
Right.
it is
Okay.
not as pliable. It's falling off at the edges.
It
It's a
almost
bit too
feels like
thin.
it
Paper.
looks like plastic.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got a sheen,
And
a plasticky
yes,
sheen to it. Yeah.
yeah, yes, correct. So, and I also found out
Mm,
that it will tear. Yeah,
mm.
so
Okay.
with no effort, right, that it will tear.
Right. Right.
So try to put it in indirect sun
Right.
or afternoon sun.
Okay.
That's it.
Indirect
Within a
sunlight.
couple of days, let's hope it
Mhm.
doesn't rain. If it rains, then sorry, it's gonna take longer.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
After
that's
that,
how
you're good to
that's
go.
oh wow.
There are other recipes online which requires you to cook your slushy or cook your, whatever you
Mm,
put in, whatever materials you're trying to work
mm,
with cornstarch and vinegar.
mm.
Okay, those are fine, but let me show you what it does. I'm going to hold up. So I mentioned to you
Mhm.
before we started that I'm working with OPP,
Yes.
Ocean Plastic Purpose. So they are a great, social enterprise that is working with seaweed, right? So I reached out to them hoping for, like, to work together with them to create
Mhm.
something new with seaweed, because
Mhm.
I'm completely amazed at the fact that Singapore has its own native seaweed species, and they're
Mhm.
different in every parts of Singapore. So they
Mm.
have collected a couple from Sentosa, East Coast, and Pasir Ris, right? So I'll show you what it looks like cooked.
Oh
So this one
wow.
comes with the cornstarch vinegar recipe, right? So it's really very, I'm holding up one of the samples of seaweed mixed with kombucha, which is
Mhm.
cooked with cornstarch and vinegars. It's very squishy
Oh
and soft.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this in the sustainable industry is called bioplastics.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
bioplastics is where you mix, like, cornstarch, you mix vinegar with it, and you cook it over a stove. So, but unfortunately with this, it's not very strong. Like, I'm ripping
Mm.
a corner off, right? So it's not
Mm.
very strong as of yet. Again, you can add more or add less of a couple of your ingredients, and you have
Mhm.
different types of um, you know, results.
Mm.
Yeah. So this is a couple of my other experiments with seaweed, just purely seaweed. So again, they just fell off,
Mm.
right?
Mm. Mm.
So which is still unfortunate. Like, maybe it's too thin, so on and so forth. Again, this collaborative effort is still very new,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure it out. One cool thing about OPP is right now they're trying to clean up the waters in Pasir Ris
Mhm.
beach to save the kelongs, right? What they're doing is they're putting mussels and seaweed lines into Pasir Ris beach, because mussels will help clean up the water.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do is trying to use the threads from the mussels, the byssus threads from the mussels, to create silk from it. So again,
Wow.
something that I've never done before. So it's gonna take a while for the mussels to grow, because because they started off like little babies like that. So they are currently at this stage. Once they are fully, adult, we'll be
Yeah.
able to have devices threads and try to, make new materials out of it. I think that would be quite an
Wow.
interesting project. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's and I it's I just I'm like lost for words because it's such a cool project and why is no one like talking about it?
I don't know. That's why I'm talking about it,
Yeah,
right?
I know.
So
Yeah.
we have until like probably early next year to figure something out with that, with the seaweed and my kombucha and the mussels. I think it'll be quite an interesting thing to do, because we also there are research papers that are out, that are published, that actually proves that mussels themselves, they create a secretion and also therefore a film that keeps it waterproof. So if we can find out what it is and how to extract it, can I put it on my vegan leather to waterproof my
Right,
vegan leather? Well, yeah,
right,
yeah. So
right.
it is a collaborative effort with everybody, right? Like NUS, NTU. So we'll see. We'll see if it works.
Wow, I look forward to hearing about how it
I will let you
goes.
know.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
really interesting. And it's almost like what's that really large word? Oh, biomimicry? Is it called like
Yes.
it's like imitating nature with
Yes.
like your own processes. And
I mean, right now, I have to tell you, I am just a person who with no science background, right? Who is
Mhm.
just playing around in her kitchen. So I need other people, especially if you're listening right now and if you're watching us and if you're like, oh, actually, yeah, I know how these processes work.
Mm,
Probably reach out to us, either one of us, right? And let's work together, because I feel like if the more people get involved, especially if you have something to contribute, the better, the faster the results can happen, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Collaboration is key. And
Collaboration is key. Yes.
mm, thank you so much for your time.
No
Oh,
problem.
we did.
I'm just glad to have like this conversation.
Yeah, no, and
Like
thank
the,
you.
the more people know about this, the better it is, right?
Mhm.
Maybe other people would try it in the kitchens and then let us know about it.
Yeah, exactly. And if
Yeah.
anyone's listening or watching, if you do try it at home,
Please let me know. I want to see.
yeah, reach out
Right.
to Hana and show her
Yeah.
photos of your scobies.
Yes, please. It'll be so exciting. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I really hope that happens. And I'm definitely gonna try it when
Please try. If you
yeah.
need Scoby, you know who to find.
So my conversation with Hana really reminded me of how sustainability isn't defined by how it usually looks on the internet or in mainstream narratives. So, sustainability also looks like growing your own scobies, getting used to the smell of wet socks, and being comfortable with the process of fermentation. It looks like tinkering and creating biomaterials in your own kitchen, experimenting with natural food dyes and from food scraps. I am so glad that Hannah spoke about her thoughts and vulnerabilities about being a fashion educator, trying to speak about concepts and practices of sustainability. I really related to Hannah's 3 a.m. thoughts, from feeling inadequate and small despite doing the best that we can. Hannah is an educator in and out of her classrooms, and perhaps me hosting this podcast. When she was speaking about, the sort of process of fermentation when it comes to creating your own biomaterials, your own kombucha leather at home, it reminded me of a publication titled An Invitation to Radical Tenderness, where the authors call for readers to ferment ourselves, mourn our illusions, and compost our shit. I'm not kidding. It literally says that in one of the pages of the publication. So I didn't understand what fermenting ourselves could look like in practice then, but I think I have a clearer idea of it now. Fermenting ourselves could possibly look like existing with intention. It looks like making changes in our own lives in the tiny, imperfect ways that we know how, but never beating ourselves up for not doing enough or feeling like we are not doing enough. It looks like balancing doing the work, resisting the system, but at the same time holding space for rest and recalibration. A friend once shared a quote with me where the author mentions the importance of inch deep, miles wide change as opposed to miles deep, inch wide change, right? And yeah, I'm just gonna let's take a minute to sort of process that. Maybe allow ourselves the time and energy and space to be a Scoby, just live with intention, exist with intention. What sort of transpired from my conversation with Hana is to also talk a bit about the history of our materials or the history of the materials that we are extremely familiar with, that we live with, materials like cotton and polyester, which I would be sharing with you very soon. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for tuning in and for listening in to Rewear at the Fashion Pulpit. And I will see you again really soon. And you'll hear me again really soon. All right. Bye.